What's up, everybody? We've got some big news regarding Crowcoin. This is basically crypto.com's utility coin, their local coin. And as of this recording, it's up about 29%. It looks like it's reaching the 20-cent psychological resistance. We'll look at it on the chart. We'll also look at some indicators that say Bitcoin has not topped out yet. But first off, this Crow news. And by the way, if you want to check out crypto.com, there is a link down below for it. Trump Media and crypto.com are building a $6.4 billion treasury firm. And Trump Media will buy 105 million in Crow tokens, while crypto.com will buy 50 million in DJT stock in this partnership. Now, there is a typo here. It says they're building a $6.4 billion Crow treasury firm, but it's actually 6.4 billion coins. I thought I'd point out that mistake here. But yeah, Trump Media is integrating crypto.com's wallet infrastructure and adding Crow as a utility token for Truth Social rewards and subscriptions. And they're basically exchanging investments. Trump Media buys 105 million in Crow, $105 million worth, not 105 million coins. This is 2% of the supply of Crowcoin. And crypto.com is acquiring $50 million in shares of DJT. This new venture will be called Trump Media Group Crow Strategy and plans to merge with Yorkville Acquisition Corp. And it'll trade under the ticker MCGA, which stands for Make Crow Great Again. This company plans to become the world's largest holder of Crow with around 6.3 billion coins. And Crow CEO Marzalek describes the initiative as a historic day for Crow, pointing to an initial 200 million earmarked for future token purchases, plus additional commitments that could bring total available funds to around 420 million, alongside a $5 billion credit line. And Trump Media plans to custody and stake their Crow holdings with crypto.com for additional revenue. And Crowcoin is having a pretty fantastic day, up about 29%. It is reaching a resistance, the 20-cent psychological resistance here. It did reach 21 cents roughly, but it couldn't hold this 20-cent psychological resistance. This is our previous cycle peak here, 23 cents. That's one zone I'm watching for. But one thing to be aware of, just like with iron the other day, is we do have some bearish divergence. We have the RSI hitting lower highs, whereas the price continues to hit higher highs. If we start cooling down, look for 17 cents as a potential support area. It was a previous resistance, and we did touch it a few times on this last run back in 2024. Crowcoin is up about 140% from where it was in late July. I would personally like to see it start establishing some support, start consolidating. That would be a very good sign if you ask me. We talked about this a few months ago. 30 indicators, all of them not pointing to Bitcoin topping out already. Was 124,000 the top? Bitcoin's price peak signals tell a different story. All 30 peak indicators are still neutral. Recent losses show new investors capitulating as seasoned holders are unfazed by it. This article also notes that Bitcoin's holding above the 20-week EMA, keeping the path open for 150K, our cycle target. My cycle target. Now, I will provide this link down below for you. It shows you all of the cycle indicators, these 30 indicators, and it is true. None of them are pointing out to sell. 0 out of 30 have been hit. This article doesn't go into great detail about every single one, but let's look at the ones that it highlights. One is the Puel multiple. This tends to top out when miners earn unsustainably high revenue. It's sitting at 1.39, below the 2.2 danger zone that we have seen in past cycle peaks. Also, the MVRV Z-score. This compares Bitcoin's price to its capital inflows. This remains in neutral rather than the overheated extremes that we saw in previous cycle tops, such as this red line area here. Also, in the key takeaways that this article mentioned, seasoned Bitcoin holders are unfazed. And those Bitcoin investors holding Bitcoin for less than a month are sitting on average unrealized losses of around negative 3.5%, and they have been selling. Crazy Block says, the market is purging its weakest hands, transferring their Bitcoin to holders with a lower cost basis and higher conviction. This shakeout, while painful for recent top buyers, is precisely the kind of event that builds a strong support base for the next significant move higher. And according to Taha, the market is structurally healthier. Over-leveraged buyers are removed. Open interest has been reset, thanks to these recent liquidations of both longs and shorts. And going to the weekly chart, Bitcoin's pullback looks less like a market top and more like a classic bull market correction. Since early 2023, Bitcoin has repeatedly posted sharp drawdowns in the 20 to 30% range before resuming its uptrend. Here are past pullbacks throughout this cycle, this since 2023. And something very interesting, these pullbacks are very tame compared to last cycle. Last cycle, when we ran to like 64,000 and pulled back 50%, then ended the cycle at like 69,000, Bitcoin lost around half of its market cap, half of its value. We haven't seen that in any correction in this cycle yet. This article points out the 20-week EMA. Bitcoin is still sitting above it. And a rebound from this 20-week EMA could put Bitcoin back on track to challenge its all-time high of around 125,000, while keeping the door open for a broader rally towards 150,000, if not higher by 2025's end. But like I said, guys, I will leave the link down below to that article and also the 30 indicators. You can look at them yourself, keep an eye on them. Now look at Bitcoin on the weekly scale. Each candle is 1 week for Bitcoin, and this is pretty much since its inception. How can you not be bullish on Bitcoin? It pretty much just goes up and to the right over the long term. If you can handle the volatility, Bitcoin is well worth the investment, in my opinion. Now, if we do continue to correct, if we see a pretty sharp drawdown, one thing I'm watching on the weekly scale is the 50 MA. This is something that we have bounced off of multiple times. Here's one bounce where we had a death cross on the daily candles. This basically tested the 50 MA on the weekly, along with back here. This circle was when we had a death cross on the daily. We also basically bottomed out on the death cross, and we also see Bitcoin find support at the 50 MA. The 50 MA at this point in time is at 95,000. If we do continue pulling down, I would expect to see that hold up. We do have some other potential areas of support to look out for before that point, such as the 200 MA, which is sitting at $101,000 now. And also, I'm seeing this pattern for Bitcoin here. This ascending channel, we have hit this as a support multiple times. Maybe we come down and hit it right around 107,000. That would be a good point to bounce. We have hit this as a resistance multiple times. This is a pretty clear trend. If it breaks, we might see a reaction on this trend break, so keep an eye on it. But yeah, I mean, these pullbacks throughout this cycle have been relatively tame. I mean, they don't feel like it at the time, but a 30% drawdown versus last cycle seeing 50% pullbacks. I'll take this cycle any day in terms of the drops. But with the less severe drops, also tends to give less gains. This cycle, compared to last cycle, has not given nearly as much in terms of performance, and that's something to expect as cycles move on. Market cap gets bigger. Bitcoin takes a lot more for it to move. It becomes more stable on the pullbacks, and it gets less exponential and crazy on the run-ups, but still amazing. Now, I did want to point out that we do have an inflation read coming up. This is PCE, comes out August 29. Our last read was 2.6%, which it has been rising pretty consistently lately. This may change the probabilities of a rate cut. Powell did talk at the Jackson Hole meeting and basically signaled that cuts are coming. If this comes in way out of control, this might change the odds of a rate cut. This will be pretty important to watch. And the next Fed meeting is going to be September 17. We also are going to have CPI and PPI before that point. Those will be important. And those come out maybe a week or so before the Fed meeting. But right now, probabilities are looking pretty good for rate cuts. There's 87% chance of a cut in the upcoming meeting, a 12% chance of leaving rates current. If PCE comes out horrible, this might change the odds, but it does seem very likely that we're getting rate cuts, mostly due to the labor market, not because of what inflation has been. Inflation is going in the opposite direction the Fed wants. But they do have a dual mandate. They want to see strong job market along with inflation cooling. But let me know what you guys think about this Crowcoin announcement. It did wake up Crow quite a bit. Now it's near its cycle top as we're coming into alt season. I think this is great timing, and I definitely welcome a nice rally for Crowcoin. How are you guys feeling about the potential for rate cuts? Make sure to keep an eye on these 30 indicators that indicate whether we have topped out or not. Thanks as always for watching, guys. If you got something useful out of this, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and I will see you next time.